Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're totally bypassing abstract theory and dropping right into a historical thriller. Picture the scene. The year is 399 BC. We are right in the bustling heart of ancient Athens, and a 70-year-old man is standing before a jury of 500 citizens. He is literally on trial for his life. And the weapon that threatened the most powerful empire in the world at the time? Well, it wasn't a sword. It was simply his voice. Okay, let's dive into this. He faced a stark, unimaginable ultimatum. The authorities didn't necessarily want to execute a 70-year-old man. They really just wanted to shut him up. Choose side A. Stop challenging people, stay quiet, and you get to live. Or choose side B. Keep speaking and die. But he absolutely refused to be silenced. His name was Socrates. And the fact that he chose to keep speaking even staring death in the face, well, it changed the entire trajectory of human thought. The sheer improbability of his legacy is just fascinating. Socrates wasn't your typical philosopher sitting up in some ivory tower. Actually, he wrote absolutely nothing down. No scrolls, no formal school buildings, literally no official government position. Instead, everything we know about this guy comes entirely from the echoes of his spoken conversations. He simply walked the streets of Athens and talked to people. That's it. His student Plato eventually recorded these conversations, but the raw material, it was entirely oral. It was all about the live, unsilenced voice connecting with another human being in real time. And he used that voice to pioneer what we now call the Socratic method. This wasn't about lecturing, and it certainly wasn't about standing on a soapbox telling people what to think. Instead, he'd approach generals, politicians, artists, you name it, and engage them in this highly specific conversational process. He used his voice like a precision tool, asking these gentle, persistent, honest questions. He just kept digging until a genuine truth finally revealed itself. Or, honestly, more often than not, a deeply held illusion completely crumbled. He'd walk right up to a powerful, decorated general or a super wealthy politician and just casually drop a simple question like, "What is justice?" Just take a second to feel the weight of those three words. It seems so incredibly simple, right? But imagine the scene. These powerful figures would confidently fire back an answer, and then Socrates would just ask another gentle question about that answer, and then another one. Slowly, publicly, these incredibly powerful people would find themselves completely paralyzed, suddenly realizing they couldn't actually define the very concepts they had built their entire lives upon. So this built into a very specific conversational loop. Step 1, deploy that simple question. Step 2, as the person frantically tries to defend their answer against his persistent follow-ups, their illusion of certainty shatters. They realize they have no idea what they're talking about. Only then, at step 3, can a more honest truth actually begin to emerge. His voice was quite literally deconstructing their egos in real time, helping them discover their own profound lack of knowledge. Which brings us to the core belief driving his entire mission. Socrates believed that the absolute most serious problem a human being could have wasn't just being ignorant. No, it was walking through life comfortably confident in beliefs you have never, ever actually examined. People believed things just because they were told to, or because it was socially comfortable, and questioning those things felt way too dangerous. He saw this unexamined confidence, this ignorance that doesn't even know it's ignorant, as the ultimate roadblock to living a wise life. And this brilliantly illustrates his personal counter-approach to that massive problem. I know that I know nothing. Now, most people today hear this quote and think, oh, wow, what a humble guy. But in the context of ancient Athens, this was radically dangerous. Athens was a city filled with absolute certainty. Politicians were certain their policies were flawless. Priests were certain they knew exactly what the gods wanted. By walking around loudly declaring that he knew nothing, Socrates was holding up a mirror to the elites. He was using his voice to essentially say, I know nothing, but guess what? Neither do you, and I can prove it. And this is exactly where a fun philosophical exercise officially turned into a death sentence. There is a massive difference between side A and side B here. If Socrates had just stuck to questioning abstract ideas in private, he probably would have been fine. But his voice escalated. He moved to side B. He started questioning power. When traditions were presented as sacred, his voice asked why. When leaders claimed supreme wisdom, his voice sat with them until they publicly proved they were totally empty. And let me tell you, powerful people absolutely do not like having their emptiness exposed in public. So, the powerful elites struck back, and we get the famous trial. They masked their absolute terror of his voice behind official charges. They accused him of corrupting the youth, which, let's be real,
just meant he was teaching young people to think independently and not blindly follow their elders. They also accused him of disrespecting the gods, which fundamentally meant he was refusing to accept unquestioned authority. The state was terrified of his voice, but they dressed that fear up under the guise of protecting tradition and morality.
During this trial, Socrates delivered what is perhaps his most famous sentiment, and I really want to slow down here because the stakes of this quote are monumental. The unexamined life is not worth living. Think really closely about that phrasing. He didn't say an unexamined life is a little bit less valuable. He didn't say it's incomplete. He literally meant that a life without honest, vocal questioning is entirely devoid of value. That is how deeply he believed in the power and the absolute necessity of the questioning voice.
So imagine you're standing in that courtroom facing 500 jurors who literally hold your life in their hands. What do? You probably beg for mercy, right? You apologize, you promise to change your ways. But Socrates? He did none of that. It was absolutely shocking. Instead of pleading for his life, he plainly stated that he was doing Athens a massive favor. He told them he served the city by being the voice that asked the questions nobody else wanted to ask. He was the alarm clock trying to wake a sleeping city up from its comfortable lies.
He then delivered this incredibly haunting warning to the jury. By condemning him, he argued, they weren't actually punishing him, they were punishing themselves. Because a society that silences the voice of dissent, a society that makes it illegal to ask hard questions, is a society that has decided to replace uncomfortable truths with comfortable lies. And the moment a society does that, it just begins to rot from the inside out.
The jury finally cast their votes. 501 votes to convict, 499 votes to acquit, a razor-thin margin. Just two minds changing would have completely altered the course of history. But the verdict was guilty. But wait, the story doesn't actually end in the courtroom. His friends presented him with one final choice while he was sitting in his cell awaiting execution. They had completely rigged the system for him. The guards were bribed, a boat was ready and waiting, a perfect, peaceful escape to another city was entirely arranged. But Socrates refuses. Why? Because to run away in the dark would be to silence his own voice. He had spent his entire life arguing that you must live according to your principles, even when it costs you literally everything. Fleeing would just make a massive hypocrite out of everything he ever stood for.
He told his friends that to fear death is simply to pretend you're wise about something you cannot possibly know. And so, the sentence is carried out. He is given the cup of poisonous hemlock. He drinks it completely calmly, he doesn't panic, he's surrounded by his friends, and incredibly, his voice remains unsilenced right up to his final breath. He was literally still conversing, still asking questions of his friends, until the poison finally stopped his heart.
So what is the ultimate legacy of this unsilenced voice? Socrates didn't leave us a rigid system of philosophy to just memorize from a textbook. He didn't leave a neat list of easy answers to life's biggest problems. What he left behind is a method, a courageous mindset, a way of approaching everyday life with endless curiosity, absolute honesty, and the incredibly rare, brave ability to look at the world and say, you know what? I actually don't know. He showed us that the most important questions in life are meant to be lived with, not just quickly solved.
Let's shift gears for a second and bring this right into our lives today. Side A is where we all live right now. A modern world completely suffocated by instant opinions, absolute toxic certainty, algorithms pushing endless anger, and the constant deafening noise of people who are very, very sure about everything. Side B is the Socratic way, that quiet, persistent, humble, honest questioning. The unsilenced voice of Socrates is the exact antidote we desperately need for the overwhelming noise of Side A. So the crucial point is this. This is not just some ancient history lesson. This is a highly practical framework for your life today. Socrates understood something that most of us completely miss. The quality of your life is not determined by how much trivia you know or how loudly and confidently you can argue your current opinions. It is fundamentally determined by the quality of the questions you are willing to ask about the world around you, about the people you fiercely disagree with, and most importantly, about yourself. Which leaves us with this final challenge. What is one belief you hold right now that you have never seriously questioned? Did you actually arrive at this belief through your own honest thought, or did you just inherit it from your family, your culture, or your social media feed? I really want you to let that question burn into your mind. Socrates gave up his life. He drank poison for the fundamental right to ask it. The very least we can do to honor his unsilenced voice is to actually try and answer it. Thanks for watching this explainer. I'll see you next time.